Welcome back to Pining Away. Part 2, Chapter 5. You remember we left off with Grunkle Stan telling Mabel that she had to marry Gideon. Let's see where this takes us. Mabel's mouth dropped open. What? It's all part of my long-term deal with Buddy Gleeful, Stan said. There's a lot of cash tied up in this thing. Plus, I got this shirt. He looked down at the t-shirt he was wearing. It read Team Gideon. The tight shirt hugged his jiggly belly. Ugh, am I fat, Stan said. Mabel screamed and ran out of the room. Bodies change, honey. He called after her. Bodies change. Dipper followed Mabel up the stairs to their attic bedroom. At first he didn't see Mabel, but then he noticed her hiding in the corner, rocking back and forth, with the collar of her sweater pulled up to cover her entire head. Oh no, Dipper said. Mabel? Mabel's not here. She's in Sweater Town, she said miserably. So pitiful. She's upset. Are you going to come out of Sweater Town, Dipper asked. Mabel just moaned and shook her head. All right, enough is enough. If you can't break up with Gideon, then I'll do it for you. Mabel poked her head out of the sweater. You will? Mabel asked. Dipper nodded. Then she hugged her brother and gave him a playful punch. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mabel knew they could find Gideon at the club, where the rich people in Gravity Falls hung out. She waited outside while Dipper went in to talk to Gideon. He found Gideon sitting at a table by himself. Oh, Dipper Pines, how are you? Gideon asked, placing down his enormous menu. You look good. You look good. Thanks. Thank you. But Dipper couldn't think of anything nice to say. He simply scratched his head. Look, Gideon, we've got to talk. Mabel isn't joining you tonight. She doesn't want to see you anymore, he chuckled nervously. She's kind of weirded out by you. No offense. Gideon's eyes narrowed. So what you're saying is, you've come between us, he said, through clenched teeth. His eyes twitched. Dipper didn't like the look on his face. You're not going to, freak out or anything, are you? Of course not. Gideon changed his tune and gave a gentle laugh. These things happen. Bygones, you know. Dipper nodded. So, okay, cool. Well, then again, sorry, man, but, thumbs up, right? Dipper forced a smile and gave Gideon a thumbs up. Then he quickly backed up and went outside, where Mabel was nervously waiting for him. How did it go? Was he mad? Did he try to read your mind with his psychic powers? She asked. Don't worry, Mabel. He's just a kid, Dipper assured her. He doesn't have any powers. Over at Gideon's house, Gideon was fuming. Up in his bedroom, he stared at his reflection in the lighted makeup mirror. Dipper Pines, Dipper Pines, you don't know what you've done, he growled angrily. He placed his hand on the stone around his neck, and an eerie green glow emitted from it. Pop, pop, pop. The light bulbs around the mirror exploded one by one. His dresser, nightstand, and bed levitated off the floor. You've just made the biggest mistake of your life, Gideon growled, thinking of Dipper. He angrily pointed at his floating dresser. Crash! It fell to the floor, breaking into pieces. His father pushed open the door. Gideon, Charles Gleeful, clean up your room this instant. Gideon spun around, his eyes blazing. He pointed a stubby finger at his father. I can buy and sell you, old man. Buddy shrugged. Fair enough. Then he backed out of the room. But Dipper and Mabel had no idea how angry Gideon was, or that he really had magic powers. Back at the Mystery Shack, they were hanging out, taking turns punching a pillow that Seuss had stuck under his t-shirt. I'm so glad everything's back to normal, Mabel said, relieved. Then the phone rang and Dipper picked it up. Toby Determined, Gravity Falls gossiper, said the voice on the other end. Oh, hey man, it's Dipper, Dipper said. We want to interview you about whether you've seen anything unusual in this here town since you've arrived, the reporter said. Oh, finally, Dipper said. I thought nobody would ever ask. I have notes and theories. Dipper wrote down the address that Toby gave him. Tonight, got it? Dipper was excited. He had been taking lots of notes about every strange thing he'd seen in Gravity Falls since he arrived this summer. It would be great to share his stories with the world. It didn't even occur to him that it might be a trap, that Gideon had bribed Toby to get Dipper exactly where he wanted him, alone and on Gideon's turf. That night, Dipper rode his bicycle to the address Toby had given him, 412 Gopher Road. He found himself at a factory on top of a tall cliff that overlooked the whole town. Dipper stepped through the open bay and cautiously called into the darkness. Hello? Hello? The door slammed shut behind him. He tried to open it, slamming his fist against it, but it was locked. He spun around as the lights came on. A dust chair swiveled around to reveal Gideon seated in it. He patted a little Gideon doll on his lap. It looked just like a mini version of himself. Hello, friend, Gideon said in a sweet voice. Dipper was annoyed. Gideon! Dipper Pines, how long have you been living in this town? Gideon asked. A week. 2. You like it here? Enjoy the scenery? What do you want from me, man? Dipper asked. Listen carefully, boy, Gideon said, his voice darkening. This town has secrets you couldn't begin to comprehend. Is this about Mabel? Dipper asked. I told you she's not into you. Liar, Gideon snapped. He jumped out of his chair and stomped towards Dipper. You turned her against me. She was my peach dumpling. Gideon's face flushed with anger. The stone on his bolo tie started to glow as he placed a hand on it. Are you okay, man? Dipper asked. Blue-green light from the stone surrounded Dipper. He gasped as the light lifted him off the floor. Then it tossed him backward, crashing into a stack of boxes of little Gideon dolls. Howdy, one of the dolls squeaked. Gideon flashed a sinister grin. Reading minds isn't all I can do. Dipper couldn't believe his eyes. But you're a fake. But he wasn't so sure anymore. Oh, tell me, Dipper, is this fake? Gideon placed a hand on his stone. He raised his other hand, and the boxes in the factory started opening up. Dipper gasped as Gideon dolls, clocks, and mugs floated up into the air, suspended by a blue light. That is the end of Chapter 5. Stay tuned for Chapter 6. And just ignore the dogs. They're barking at something. Maybe it has to do with Dipper and Gideon. Let's stay tuned to find out for Chapter 6 of Pining Away, Part 2.